Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of 5-Minute EMS Review, where we give you short and to-the-point videos on different EMS topics. Today, we are looking at the structure of the heart and the pathway of blood through it. The key here is that we want to understand this as a basic foundation before we can move on to an understanding of the pathophysiology of different cardiac disorders, as well as a basic understanding of cardiac monitoring and 12-lead ECGs. So that being said, let's get started. First off, we want to look at the four chambers of the heart. The heart has two upper chambers called atria. The responsibility of the atria is to receive blood and move it on to the next chamber. So on the right side of the heart, we have the right atrium. The right atrium receives deoxygenated blood from the body and moves it on to the next chamber. On the left side of the heart, we have the left atrium. The left atrium receives oxygenated blood from the lungs and moves that blood along to the next chamber. These next chambers that we're talking about are the lower chambers of the heart, and they are called the ventricles. The right ventricle receives the blood from the right atrium and then moves the blood along to the lungs where the blood can be oxygenated. The left ventricle receives the blood from the left atrium and moves the blood along to the body. The key with this is that the left ventricle is responsible for pumping blood out to the body and moving it throughout the body. So the left ventricle is going to be our strongest and most muscular chamber of the heart. It is the workhorse, so to speak. Now, in addition to the chambers, we have four valves. We have two atrio-ventricular valves. It's a big word here, but all it means is that these valves are located between the atria and the ventricles, atrio-ventricular valves. Then we also have two semilunar valves. Now, the first atrio-ventricular valve is located on the right side of the heart between the right atrium and the right ventricle, and it is called the tricuspid valve. Tricuspid for three cusps. The second atrio-ventricular valve is located on the left side of the heart and is located between the left atrium and the left ventricle. It is called the bicuspid or mitral valve. Bicuspid for two cusps. Now, the semilunar valves are located between each ventricle and the artery to which it pumps its blood. So on the right side of the heart, we have the pulmonic valve located between the right ventricle and the pulmonary artery. On the left side of the heart, we have the aortic valve located between the left ventricle and the aorta. Now, the cool thing about these valves, not only do they prevent backflow, but they are also responsible for the sound that you hear, the lub-dub you hear when the heart is beating. That's actually the sound of the valves closing. That's the sound that you're hearing, the lub-dub. Now that's the basic movement of the chambers and the valves in the heart. So now we want to look at the movement of blood through those chambers and valves. So we said that the right atrium is the chamber responsible for receiving deoxygenated blood from the body. It receives this blood from the superior and inferior vena cava, and it then moves the blood through the tricuspid valve, our first atrio-ventricular valve, into the right ventricle. The right ventricle then pumps its blood through the pulmonic valve into the main branch of the pulmonary artery, which is going to then divide into two main pulmonary arteries, the right and the left pulmonary artery, taking the blood to the lungs where it can pick up oxygen. Now, when we return from the lungs, oxygenated blood is going to return via the pulmonary veins. We have two main pulmonary veins coming from each lung, and these veins dump the blood into the left atrium. The left atrium then moves our blood through the mitral or bicuspid valve, our second atrio-ventricular valve, into the left ventricle. The left ventricle then pumps the blood through the aortic valve into the aorta and the rest of the body. This is our flow of blood. Now, we said we had to have a basic understanding of this flow in order to understand some pathophysiology. We're not going to get into a whole lot of pathophysiology here, but I did want to talk a little bit about the backup of blood that can occur in congestive heart failure, since we're talking about the flow of blood. So we can have left congestive heart failure, left side failure, or right side failure, or both at the same time. So congestive heart failure that affects the left side of the heart is causing the left ventricle to have difficulty pumping blood forward to the body. So that means that blood is going to back up from the body into the left ventricle, back into the left atrium, and into the lungs, resulting in pulmonary edema or buildup of fluid in the lungs. That is left-sided heart failure. Right-sided heart failure is where the right ventricle is having difficulty pumping the blood forward to the lungs. So blood is going to back up from the lungs into the right ventricle, into the right atrium, and back into the body. This can result in dependent edema, or edema in lower areas of the body that are dependent on blood flow forward up to the heart. This may manifest in swelling in the ankles, swelling in the abdomen. You may even see jugular venous distension, which would be backing up of blood upward into the neck in the jugular veins. This all could be possible with right-sided heart failure. So that's a little bit of a preview for us into some of our pathophysiology involved in cardiac disorders. Stay tuned for more videos on our cardiology channel on our YouTube channel playlists. So hopefully those will be helpful to you. We hope today's content was helpful in unpacking the structure and flow of blood through the heart. We appreciate you tuning in. We would love it if you'd share our channel with any colleagues or people you may know who might be studying new in the field of EMS. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.